Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I've got a terrifying lineup of cryptid encounters ranging from Sasquatch to Chupacabra to possibly a Skinwalker. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page to help raise money to help me pay for legal fees I'm accruing on a daily to fight for custody for my 12-year-old daughter. As of right now, I have physical custody, but her and myself are fighting for full custody. And in New York State and other states, that's a hard thing to do, no matter what the circumstances are or what you can prove. Now, if that's anything that you're willing to help with, that link is in the description below as well. I'd like to thank everybody who has generously donated. You guys have no idea how much that means to me and my daughter Isabel. Thank you so much. Now I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these terrifying encounters, shall we? Today's first terrifying encounter. I live in Oklahoma, and there's a little town with a shapeshifter legend. She's called the Deer Lady, and I thought it was a joke until I went on a trip there. We stayed in a cabin, and one of the girls, who was Native American, told us of the story. She told us that even saying her name, the Deer Lady, would draw her to us. We, of course, said the name a few times with no results. Much later that night, myself and a couple of my friends were on the front porch, and all of a sudden a wind began to blow hard from all directions, and we started hearing what sounded like a giant bird on the roof of the cabin. The bird would have had to have been the size of a small human. We quickly went inside, and we still heard the thing and its talons on the roof. This went on for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then everything was quiet, and it was like a weight was lifted off all of us once it was over. I now refer to her as the DL if I'm speaking of her, and then I will not speak of her when I'm even in that town because of what we experienced felt so weird and wrong. Could this have been a Skinwalker? Oklahoma is full of Native American legends, and now I'm wondering how many of them are real. Tonight's second part of the upload. El Chupacabra has been crawling all over Chile for the last few months, raising many new questions about this mysterious creature, and resulting in astonishing claims about its origin. It stands 3 to 4 feet, has a flexible row of spines down its back, eyes that glow red, and long, sharp fangs. Some even say it has wings. This is how eyewitnesses have described the strange, unworldly creature known as El Chupacabra, Spanish for the goat sucker. The creature, as elusive as Bigfoot and as terrifying as a demon, earned its name from the way it kills its victims, mostly farm animals, including goats, by sucking the lifeblood from them. Chupacabra first made headlines in 1995 when several attacks were reported in Puerto Rico. The small island still claims the most number of attacks to date, but slaughtered chickens, duck, goats, cats, dogs, and other small animals have been attributed to Chupacabra in Mexico, Central America, South America, and even parts of the southern United States. During April, May, and June of 2000, however, there were reports of a spat of attacks coming out of Chile. The mysterious deaths of farm animals followed the same pattern as those in Puerto Rico and other countries. The descriptions from eyewitnesses who have claimed to have actually seen the creature in Chile match the hideous features detailed in previous accounts. The stories that came out of Chile, many reported in Chilean newspapers, had an incredible twist. A few of the dreaded creatures, they said, were actually caught and killed, and Then their bodies were taken away by representatives of the United States government agencies. That was the claim, anyway. The attacks began in April, and newspapers carried stories of the mysterious deaths of close to 200 goat, sheep, chicken, and rabbit in northern Chile. At first, the deaths were blamed on packs of wild dogs. But one traditional feature of the killings turned the suspicion on the legendary Chupacabra. The respected news agencies reported that some of the animal victims had incisions in their throats and their blood had been sucked out. The report also said that detectives swept the zone with night vision equipment and that blood-curdling sounds had been heard in the dark, causing residents not to venture outside. Victor Espinosa, an investigator for Chile's ecology department, was said to take hair samples and footprint castings for examination. The paw prints do not match those of horses, cows, goats, pigs, felines, or wild dogs, Espinosa said, and according to Dr. Virgila Sanchez of the Miami UFO Center, Espinosa also said that the evidence shows that the animal walks on two legs and only attacks hot-blooded animals and not snakes or lizards of the region. In late May, early June, rumors surfaced that 3 of the creatures had actually been captured, reported chiefly by Marcial Campos Mesa of the Chile's EFE news service and by Joseph Trainer of UFO Roundup in the United States, among others. The stories claimed that 3 of the creatures had been caught in a desert near a mine just north of the town of Calama. In a struggle to capture the Chupacabras, they said that 1 Chilean soldier had been killed. The Chilean military allegedly would not discuss that matter. More bizarrely, after the little monsters had been held in the army barracks for several hours, a team of NASA representatives arrived by helicopter from the United States, closing the local airport according to one story, and they took them away. How it was assumed that these people were from NASA is unclear, as where the notion came from that NASA, the U.S. Space Agency, would have jurisdiction over such matter, if that was a fact. Residents of Calama and nearby communities continue to blame NASA for the apparitions and attacks of the mysterious Chupacabra, Meza reported, which has killed many farm animals in the region and other parts of Chile, their bodies completely exsanguinated and undevoured by the mysterious predator. It was said that the captured animals were kept all day at the regiment's barracks until NASA experts arrived to take them away. Why NASA? Some residents believe that the deadly Chupacabra are the result of some diabolical genetic experience gone awry by NASA or some other U.S. agencies. The gringos had at least 3 genetic experiences run away from them. One respected Chilean architect was quoted as saying, but it was not disclosed how he came upon such information. It seemed that El Chupacabra was not pleased with having a few of its kind carted away. A new rash of animal killings started to occur in early June. In the backyard of a home in the port city of Talchano, 14 chickens were mysteriously slaughtered on June 4th, and Chupacabra was blamed. A few days later, the newspaper Diario El Sur ran a story about another attack in the city of Concepcion. The strange case took place around 4 in the morning, while Julio Reyes and his wife Carmen were still asleep. They suddenly heard a loud noise coming from their home's backyard, a kind of small farm in which they have a hen house and a garden containing tomato, potato, chocka, and pepper plants. The light outside of the hen house was on. I saw the monster flapping its wings fiercely while the hens were crowing, something they never do at this time. That's when I saw the white one running toward the back. At this time, Bobby, the family's dog, came out to take a look. But when he saw the back gate, through which the hens had fled, he refused to follow and remained standing still. He then ran toward the street gate and began barking, explained Carmen, who did not witness the events herself out of the fear of the intruder might be a burglar. Bobby became sort of dopey and then turned back. He didn't dare go forward, Julio states. Around 7 in the morning, the couple discovered what had transpired. In the very rear of the backyard, which can only be reached by crossing 2 gates, there 3 hens and 1 rooster were found dead, completely torn to shreds, as if they had been ripped open at the chest cavity and scattered in a 10-meter or 33-foot radius. It is worth noting the house's entrance is a gate covered with chicken wire. Chile's national police blamed the attack on wild dogs, but Reyes did not accept that explanation based on several paw prints found on the site. The newspaper article continued. Twice the size of Bobby's, the owner was not satisfied with that explanation given the difficulty the dog would have had getting into that area. Also, Reyes said that he had previously experiences with dog attacking his chickens, and they took the chicken away one by one to eat them. They didn't slaughter them in this manner. 2 days later, another report was called in to a local radio station. The caller, from the city of Antofagasta, claimed to have actually seen the Chupacabra. He said he was awakened by strange noises his cat was making. When he got up to investigate, the creature saw him and took off at high speed. He claimed that the Chupacabra had virtually destroyed his car by making deep scratches in it with its claws, and it killed the cat. Certainly, this is not the last we will hear of the Chupacabra. The attacks might die down in Chile, but the nasty little creature will surface again somewhere else. It might be a good idea to keep all of your goats and chickens secured locked up. My parents and I moved into a house that was only a couple 100 yards from an abandoned railroad bed in Marysville, Ohio, when I was 5 years old. It wasn't long after that my friends and I started our forays at the railroad bed during the summer months. The weeds that were there would grow far taller than we were. For us, it was akin to being a forest. Each summer we'd carve paths through, using sticks to hack and slash at the weeds, cutting out a narrow, curving path and a larger, opened area where we'd gather to talk and whatnot. When the Sasquatch first turned up, or should I say when we first noticed it, we were still young. We had no idea what was there. We felt that something was there on occasion watching us, but for a long time we saw nothing. Then one of my friends reported having seen something large and hairy there one night. He saw it from a distance and only briefly. The rest of us didn't take him too seriously at first. He kept hounding us with it, though. Then another friend, a girl whose grandparents lived in the lot adjoining the railroad bed, saw something one night. She mostly lived with her grandparents due to family issues, and her bedroom window looked right out at the old railroad bed. Having a second report of something large and hairy up there at night made us all take it a little more seriously. Still, we were young and stupid, and the railroad bed was our place to go and get away from our parents. It was our place. We weren't going to give it up easily. Being so young still, we had no idea what we had. We started calling it a troll, as we never had the impression that it was there full time, so we learned to live with it. It's been suggested to me before that it was probably a Sasquatch juvenile itself. I don't really know. Several years went by, and we were easing into our teen years. That's when things started to pick up. Maybe there was a juvenile. Maybe it was just watching us grow and decided that while it was willing to allow young children to play there, it wasn't going to be tolerant of older kids. But the girl that lived right next door to the railroad bed had several more nighttime sightings. She was actually so afraid of what she had saw that she convinced herself that she was dreaming these rather than truly admit that there was something there. I had 3 sightings of them over the years. She was with me for the first. We were in her grandparents' yard, walking up a short, gentle hill to the railroad bed. She froze and put her arm across my chest, stopping me. I looked at her. She was staring, open-mouthed and wide-eyed, pointing straight ahead. Through the narrow gap in the weeds, I saw what looked like a head and shoulders of a large humanoid figure with dark black hair. It was either sitting or crouched, holding perfectly still. We were seeing its profile. We backed slowly down the hill until it was out of sight, and then we turned and ran. After that, she refused to ever go back up there, not even as part of the group. The following day, we told another friend, and he wanted to see the spot where the creature had been seen. It was broad daylight, so I took him there, albeit reluctantly. The only sign we saw was large patches of flattened grass where it had been. Somewhere in there, he and I also found what we referred to as a vine cave, which I now believe to have been a nest. From our point of view, it simply popped into existence, literally overnight, in a large area we had carved out. He and I actually crawled into it a few times, but always felt very uncomfortable in it and always left quickly. Not long after the discovery of the vine cave, a couple of rival kids destroyed it, thinking we had built it. I think that may have caused the increase in encounters with the Sasquatch and its attempts to chase us away. My second and third sightings were spaced out over the next couple of years. Each time I saw it, it was in broad daylight. I was in our driveway pulling weeds that were growing up through the gravel. Movement from up at the railroad bed caught my attention. I looked up there to see a tall, humanoid being with long arms walking along the hill, moving to my right. It was covered in dark black hair. I always suspected that it was the same creature I saw on my first sighting, but I really don't know for sure. I watched it walk for a few seconds until it was blocked from view by the neighbor's storage shed. Then I turned and ran into the house. I didn't go back up to the railroad bed for a few weeks. My third sighting was from a far greater distance. On the other side of the railroad bed was a fenced-in area of cow pasture and a local water tower. Beyond that, a trailer court. I was in our upstairs back bedroom one afternoon, again during broad daylight. I saw what I first took as a rolled-up rug by the trash can in the back of the trailer court. I could just barely see it due to the distance. I looked away and then looked back. What I was seeing seemed shorter, as if it was sagged or crouched. I kept looking away and then looking back, wanting to see if it moved. I couldn't tell if it was moving or not. Finally, I looked away for about 10 minutes. When I looked back, whatever it was gone. Another friend of mine lived in a house just beyond the far side of the trailer court. A wooden privacy fence divided his backyard from the trailer court. He once told me that he and his family would sometimes smell a heavy, musky scent at night. They would sometimes hear what sounded like heavy footfalls outside of their house at night. He said his mother even claimed to have heard a loud heartbeat on occasion. All in all, we were pretty lucky. We gave it plenty of incentive to lash out at us. Luckily, it never did anything to hurt us, just scare us, employing fear tactics. We were just too dumb or stubborn to pay close enough attention, even after we had all seen it. Aside from the direct sightings of the creature or creatures, we had other evidence that it was there as well. Once, when I was in my teens and at the railroad bed alone, something that sounded very large was in the weeds and brush ahead of me, thrashing at the weeds, causing them to move and make lots of noise. I thought at first it was the same friend who wanted to go out and check the site on my first direct sighting of the Sasquatch. About the same moment I realized that whatever was ahead of me was too large to be him. A rock about the size of my fist was thrown at me, just narrowly missing hitting me in the head. I ran and refused to go back to the railroad bed a few weeks later. Next time I was there alone, I was in the same place, and the same weed thrashing occurred again. Luckily, no rock was thrown at me this time. Another time, that same friend who wanted to see the spot of my first sighting and I were at the railroad bed by ourselves. There had to have been at least two of the creatures with us, one on either side of us. Nothing was thrown at us, but the same weed thrashing noises started up on each side of us. Oddly, this time nothing was moving that we could see. Both of us clearly heard the sounds, but couldn't see anything move. Still, after holding our ground for only a few moments, we both ran. This same friend also decided to step up our own claims on the railroad bed after he found a rock cairn built on our path one day. The cairn was small. My friend spouted his usual line of "no fucking monkey is gonna chase me away" and promptly kicked the cairn, scattering the stones. We gathered up new stones and built a new, larger cairn in the place of the one we had found. We left and went back the next day to find our own cairn scattered and a new, larger one in its place. My friend immediately kicked it apart and we built a new, larger one still in the place of the one we had found. This went on for days. Each day we'd find a new cairn we'd built the next day, wrecked, and a newer and larger one would be in its place. Each day my friend would scatter the new one and we'd build our own, larger yet, in place of the most recent one we had found. Secretly, I thought he was going up to the railroad bed later and building a new cairn we would find the next day. He thought the same for me. Finally, after this had gone on long enough that the cairns were getting to be a bit larger than a shoebox size, my friend decided to go one better and scent mark the cairn we had just built. He told me what he was going to do and promptly unzipped his pants and urinated on the rock cairn we had built. Afterward, we left and went to his house. We hung out on his front porch for a couple of hours, talking, then decided to go check on the newly scented, marked cairn. The smell hit us when we were still a good 100 yards away, maybe even more from that cairn. We knew what we'd find, and it scared us both, because we had been together that entire time, and each of us knew not one of us went back up there to do anything to our cairn that we had built. The scent was overpowering musk that was so strong it made us sick. Think skunk concentrate. We held our breath, ran in, saw what we knew we'd find, a new cairn that was noticeably larger than the one we had built a few hours prior, and ran back out into the clear air to breathe. The stench lingered for days, but that ended our rock cairn war. There were other times before and after that when my friends and I would be at the railroad bed and smell what smelled like skunk. We also once found what looked like a shallow, cruel pit toilet. We saw what looked to be finger marks in the mud and suspected they had been dug out with very large, bare hands. Several of the toilets contained what looked to be human fecal matter, only far larger. The next-door neighbors we had while I was growing up there were very wasteful people. They didn't believe in leftovers from meals. If something wasn't eaten, it went into the trash, not the refrigerator. Their trash was torn up many, many times. They went to the expense of having a 5-foot brick wall built around the area where they kept their trash cans. There was a green picket gate in the front for the garbage collectors to open to access the trash. They also bought trash cans with locking lids. None of it did any good. Whatever kept tearing into the trash would sometimes open the gate, leaving it open, and knew how to unlock the locked trash can lids. I've often wondered if the trash wasn't why the Sasquatch liked that area, and if it wasn't using the railroad bed as a convenient staging place to raid both their trash and the trash from the aforementioned trailer court. I have no evidence to support these claims. We were young and never thought to gather any evidence. Something I kick myself for to this day. Having a Sasquatch passing, though, so closely, so often, didn't seem special to us because we were growing up with it. We moved in when I was 5 years old and moved out in 1998 when I was 22, only days before my 23rd birthday. Later, I was told the railroad bed area has become even more abandoned and overgrown. But I'm no idea if the Sasquatch is still there or not. I told you guys, I told you, I had a good set of encounters for you. Wow, Ohio is a hot spot for Sasquatch and Dogman. And it's crazy because Ohio is just a little south of me. A couple hours, not just a little. But Ohio resembles my area of New York. Somewhat rural, somewhat city, somewhat woodsy. Very interesting encounter though. The old railroad bed. And a group of Sasquatch, possibly a group. They didn't really know if it was a group or not, but definitely crazy. And a cairn or cairn is a mound of rocks. It's a small structure or monument. I had no idea what it was, so I was like, what the hell is a cairn or a cairn? And I looked it up and I was like, why? That makes sense, you know. And you find these little rock mounds out in the woods. I do when I was younger, and I'd be out in the woods hiking by myself or with friends. We'd find them periodically. Crazy that these kids crawled into a Sasquatch nest. I'm surprised that it didn't smell them and actually go around their home. Very crazy. Cool upload though, or encounter. The El Chupacabra. I did this one in particular because the other day or other week when I did the Chupacabra encounters from the United States, a subscriber said this is not what the original Chupacabra or El Chupacabra looks like. And I was like, you know what? The guy's right. Because when I was growing up, the El Chupacabra was this bipedal, short, spiked-backed creature. And it was not dog-like. And I wonder where that crossed over, you know, how that became the Chupacabra that we know, this dog-like creature, to where the El Chupacabra is what I just narrated today. I wonder where that division came about. That's what I meant to say. Sorry for that stupid couple of sentences there. Because they have no resemblance. You know, one North American Chupacabra is dog-like. It's described to have mange, what I believe to be a thylacine. And then the El Chupacabra, the goatsucker, which reminds me of a demon, so to say. I mean, nobody wants to... It's 3 to 4 feet, a row of spines, eyes that glow red, sharp fangs, and wings possibly. Who the fuck wants to fuck with something like that? Not me. Not me at all. And it killed a soldier, a Chilean soldier. That's insane. And I find it interesting that for some reason our government, the United States government, can go in a different country and claim this cryptid or this beast animal, whatever the heck it is, and take it back to America. Where the hell did we get that power from? What, do we just patrol the world for cryptids, you know? I wonder if we did have this escape from us, or if, you know, who knows? But the U.S. government, they know a lot more than they're letting on, and it's really agitating me because, you know, they'll release all this UFO information. Why not release some of this information to us? You know, this is more interesting, more, well, it's not more interesting than UFO, but, I mean, I'd want to know more about a creature that is lurking around on the ground through the woods that could possibly grab me as I'm walking on a trail or doing something, you know? It's just crazy how the US government has their fingers in everything. And I dislike it so much because it makes no sense. Chile is not even relatively close to the United States, but for some reason a helicopter flies down and let's pick up this El Chupacabra and bring it back to Texas or wherever the fuck they brought it, DC, wherever, and did whatever. And then the poor Chilean people have to deal with the repercussions and get attacked by more. That's smart. That's smooth. United States. I'm not saying anything about the country. I'm saying stuff about the government. I love this beautiful country that we live in. The Oklahoma deer lady. That's creepy. Oklahoma's got a lot of creepy cryptids. I remember when I first started this channel, a subscriber with me who's been with me forever said she was from Oklahoma, and I started doing like research on the Native Americans and some of their legends from Oklahoma, and there's a lot. There really is a lot. There's a lot all over the country though. Oklahoma is a real cool state to have these different encounters though. They have the off the top of my mind, I can't remember what it was, but it was some sort of owl-like cryptid that flew. Of course, Dogman, Sasquatch, and now the deer lady, which could be a shapeshifter, because as we know, there is a lot of Native Americans and tribes that got forced to be in places where they didn't want, and Oklahoma was one of those states where they got pushed. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters as much as I enjoyed sharing them with you. I hope you guys had a great President's Day, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. And with that, I'm going to bid you farewell.